Well, hello, friends. So today I embark on yet another mixed media journey. Yes. And one of my goals this year has been to work more intuitively and play with colors that I don't normally work with. Pastels. Oh, pastels. Yeah, I don't look good in pastels actually. I rarely wear them. But pastel colors are beautiful. Not what I normally gravitate toward, but there's a softness about them that I guess I never thought mixed very well with a lot of the techniques that I use and the kind of street art appeal that I kind of am drawn to. But I started to wonder why I thought that, so I figured I would give it a shot and started by creating an abstract background with some pink, some teal, white, coral, while at the same time playing around with some different tools to create some different textures. In the past couple of weeks, I've become kind of attached to the rubber brayer. I really enjoy using it. It's a great way to lay down paint. I also use a squeegee, I use palette knives, I use a spray bottle full of water, and then if you actually spray the paint that's already on the canvas and you use a paper towel, you could remove paint. And if you like to use glazes, you can use glazes right over that and it will change the hue and you'll still see the drips. Pretty cool. But the rubber brayer has become one of my favorite tools to use for painting, especially I would say within the last couple of weeks to a month. I love the texture that you can get with it, but you also get tremendous coverage, and because it lays the paint on a little bit thicker, you can blend different colors and create different gradients, which is really neat. So all of these different tools like, the silicone brushes, the rubber brayer, the palette knives, all create these wonderful different textures, and you can create just an abstract painting if you want to. What I'm trying to do is just create a background that will be interesting, but I find also that when painting a portrait, if I have colors underneath before I start painting the portrait, it actually helps to guide me with the colors that I want to use for skin tones so that it will be more integrated into the painting. So before we get into more of the painting process, I'd like to show you the reference I used. So that reference isn't the greatest reference for painting in the world. Great photo, but it really didn't have that much detail. It was kind of overexposed, so I had to just put a sketch on the canvas that was kind of roughly what I wanted, but I didn't entirely like the shape of the lips or the face in general, so I kind of just did a rough drawing. And then I'm using some raw sienna mixed with some mixing white, because mixing white is like a semi-transparent by Winsor and Newton, and so I could still see the colors underneath, but I could get some of that definition of the face onto the canvas, even though it wasn't perfect. Like, I had to continually give some facelifts, a little bit of rhinoplasty here and there, definitely a lip job later on in the painting. So right now I'm just trying to get kind of a rough guesstimate of where I want the features to be, and they're not totally where I want them to be at the beginning of it. So I'm introducing a little bit of burnt umber for the shadows, because at this point I really don't know how dark I want the shadows to be. I'm working on a pretty light sort of painting and I want there to be a lot of movement. I also want it to have more of the spring kind of colors to it. So I don't want my shadows to be overly dark. This is one of those things where it's like you build up in layers your darks and use your transparents in order to do that, because if you want to lighten them up again, you have to use opaques. And this is another area where I decided to look at the reference, and she does have blue lips. So I was like, well, maybe if I made them a lighter blue and I use a little bit of manganese and some teal, and to be honest with you, it really didn't work for the painting at all, and I ended up changing that later. But I just figured I would give it a shot, and it was just too bright and too dark for the painting. So moving on to the hair, this is where I wanted to have a lot of movement. However, I wasn't really sure how I was going to achieve that at the beginning, and I really should have gone in with a darker glaze, maybe a Payne's gray, in order to get kind of the depth of the hair where the roots and the other strands of hair would cover that darker section, but I didn't, and I kind of worked in a backwards fashion. And that, I think it would have worked a lot better had I put down some sort of darker shadow color first. But the beauty of hindsight. In the beginning stages of a painting, which this is still at the pretty early stages of the painting, I still consider this to be almost the blueprint stage, where you can kind of use all different things like Posca markers to kind of sketch in where you want things to be, and you can play with a lot of different ideas, and then you can decide what you want to cover up and what you want to keep. But if you have a lot going on at the beginning, then it's easier to go, oh, well, there's stuff right there, there's some interest right there, I can cover that up, I can make that look a little bit better or more refined later on in the painting. But when you're still trying to figure out exactly what your concept is going to be and your composition, this is the time where I feel like you can play around a little bit more and you can have some fun with it. Because let's face it, if the process isn't fun, then why bother? And so I indeed do have some fun. I use some patterns, some spray paint, I use some Sakura solid paint markers, some Posca markers. I really wanted the hair to kind of fade back into the background a little bit, so I started incorporating some of the colors in the background into it. And you know, this is all like part of the fun process where you're trying to figure out how you want the painting to end up looking. And I do think the painting did turn out pretty well, but of course, you know, this is more of like a rough patch at the moment because you don't see any of the refinement. And to be honest with you, my paintings don't look good all the way through. They never do. There's always a lot of trial and error and just figuring out where I want things to go. But yeah, that's all par for the course when you're trying to be intuitive about your process and you're not planning everything out like you used to. There's a little bit more tweaking involved. Yes, tweaking. Not to be confused with twerking, because I don't do that. So now we've gotten to the refinement stage, which is where I do a little bit of facelift here and there. The jawline was jutting out a little too far for my liking, so I had to kind of tame that beast just a little bit. And I'm also going to be adding some earth tones as well as some neutrals, but I don't want to offset the kind of pastel feel, but there are certain areas where I started using a transparent burnt sienna, like under the eye, and I liked that kind of contrast between some of these earth tones and then the pastels. I think it kind of evened it out quite a bit. So as you can see at the moment, it kind of looks like a magazine cover, or like a magazine cover for Candyland, maybe. And I did want to kind of knock that back quite a bit. So what I did was on certain parts of the neck, I was like, I need to get rid of some of these patterns. I want to have more of this abstract kind of brush strokey look to it so that it kind of fades into the background a little bit. And I really wanted to get a softer look with the hair as well. So adding some yellow ochre, raw sienna, burnt umber. I do add some hooker's green into it, I believe, in some areas. And it's really so that you get a little bit of the realism within the face, but I still want to have that abstract mixed media background. It's already becoming a lot softer, adding the vague impression of the shoulders and kind of still continuing to integrate the hair into the background because I do want to have that movement. And so you'll see that the movement actually ends up being created more with the hair as I go over all the strands of hair and kind of blend them out a little bit. And I'm just using acrylics for this whole entire painting. I didn't go on to oils for the refinement because I did want it to really have that mixed media vibe. And I also wanted to see if I could make this painting nice and soft with the acrylics without actually transitioning to oils for all of the refining and the blending and everything. And I think it really did come out pretty well. I don't know. I don't think I will add any oils to this painting, but if I decide to, I will show you the outcome. But at this point, I think that it ended up looking pretty good without the oils. And then after doing, a couple of rhinoplasties and the lip job that I do here, because that color was just way too dark. So I wanted to lighten it up, and I think it really made a huge difference. But hey, if you want to see the full-length video of this, consider heading over to my Patreon. And I also have free content over there, which is extra content if you wanted to become a free member. And with this video is pretty much almost complete. And I hope you enjoyed it. I really thank you guys for watching, and I love you, and I will see you next time.